What's up, gang? This is the X Teen Featurette channel. I'm Chris, and this is a TGIX review of Deadly Games, 1982 release, recently put out by Arrow Video USA. They were kind enough to send this to me for review, and this is my first time watching it, not to be confused with this movie. It's a slasher flick. I will talk a little bit about the plot, no spoilers, and then we will look at this release. So a character that I don't think is on the cover of this is like the first person that we see in the movie, which is, we don't learn her name until a little bit later, but we follow this girl home. Basically, she's getting into her house. It's very desolate looking. It's like up on a hill. There's no other houses around it. And she immediately, it's late at night, she gets in the door, it's very dark. She immediately starts undressing as soon as she gets in the door. Maybe even while she's like in the doorway. She proceeds to like take off her top and then just like fondle herself. She goes out, she actually walks out the back door, like a side door, back outside, and she's now standing in the moonlight, being bathed in moonlight, if you will, and she's just fondling her breasts. And I think, you know, watching this as a woman, I was like, well, that's very realistic to me. I mean, women often fondle their breasts in the moonlight. So that seemed very realistic. I related to that. So after that introduction, she gets a phone call. The guy on the other end is like, I love that coral top, which happens to be the shirt that she was actually wearing that she had just peeled off of her. Then she looks down the street and there's like a phone booth. And we get a really good look at the scenery surrounding this. This is literally like in some desolate mountain, and there happens to be a phone booth sitting right outside of her house, down the road a little bit. It was very, very strange, but there was a dude in there, and she's all freaked out. Then he comes to her house, and she is doing the typical slasher thing where she is falling over everything, falling over nothing, just falling to fall everywhere because she's trying to get away from this guy as he's walking at a very, very leisurely pace, and she can't seem to escape him. And, you know, obviously instead of leaving the house, she goes upstairs, and all the while she's pleading with him for her life, and she's like, oh, I'll give you whatever you want, I'll make you feel good. And he says, I'm gonna kill you, Linda. And he doesn't kill her. He was bluffing, I suppose. She gets so scared, she like backs up against this window and falls out. It didn't look like a double-paned window. I don't think that she put that much pressure up against it, that it should have shattered the way that it did. But regardless, she fell through to her death. And it wasn't that high up. It wasn't a very big fall. So Linda didn't survive. It was an accident. The guy, all the while he's stalking her, he's like going, it sounds like he has asthma or something, and he's going, so that was pretty telling. Then we keep getting like these weird shots of like these die being rolled and stuff like that. And it's on like a game board, and it looks like the game of life, like with the track and everything, how you move the pieces along the track, or Candyland, I suppose. And but instead of having like normal spaces, it says like, you know, there's themes like Frankenstein and the Mummy and just weird horror related themes to this board game. So Deadly Games is, I guess, a board game. Homeboy with the bloody hand here holding some die. Okay, so that's our intro. The rest of it, like this character here is Linda's stepsister, Keegan Lawrence. She writes for a magazine, but she talks about herself like she's a star or something, just like the way she refers to herself and like this whole persona she has. And the people in this small town act like she's a star whenever they see her. They're like, oh, it's Keegan Lawrence. Keegan shows up at Linda's house as the cops are still investigating the crime scene, because when else would she show up? Obviously she's going to show up then. And there's a cop there, Roger Lane. He's super mean to her at first. He tells her to basically get lost. She says that she's a journalist, and he's like, oh, beat it. And then she takes a liking to him. They like bond in her sister's, like her late sister's house. And then it's basically just meeting people. There are a couple girls, which are probably the ones you see here. All of the girls in this movie, they're all just like average looking white chicks, and they all look the same. All of their hairstyles are kind of similar. like the way they're dressed changes, and that's all kind of similar. So there's no like distinguishing features on any of these women except for like one's kind of fat, one wears eccentric clothes, and that's basically it. So we know Keegan, and then it's like there's this group of like 4 or 5 other women. I don't even know how many, and I really couldn't tell them apart. So that was a little bit confusing to me personally. We learned that there's this one girl that I guess went to school with Keegan and Linda, and she is a B, and she happens to be married to Lane. Keegan gets a little bit heartbroken because she has a thing for Lane. So Lane and his wife, this B, hold some swinger party kind of at their house. There's like a pool and stuff, and like everybody in town's pretty much there. And we learn that this cop has like slept with everyone in town, and I guess so is the wife. He like walks in on his wife making out with some dude, and he's just like, hey, beat it, guy. And that's pretty much it. You know, there's like this fight, and the wife just basically voices her displeasure with Lane. The next day they're like having a fight in the kitchen, and Lane like takes his gun and does something that's like super uncomfortable. He like aims it at his wife and just like, you know, I think pulls the trigger. It was like not loaded or didn't discharge, but still, you know, watching it, you're like, what the hell? What is wrong with you, dude? He goes into grim details telling his wife about some girl that was basically hooked to the bottom like drain of this pool, and she drowned. And they're like, oh yeah, it didn't look like an accident. And he's like telling his wife all these details that like make her really uncomfortable, and, you know, threatening his wife essentially. And it was a really weird scene. Very, very strange. The relationships are strange. Keegan is like this super bubbly person, and she's like always joking with people. She's like always lighthearted. Lane has a weird friend, Billy. This was released in '82. Lane and Billy are Vietnam War veterans, so they have like some brothership, and they are best friends and like inseparable, even though Billy is really weird. And it's not just the fact that he's weird, but whenever he's alone, he makes comments about people that just make him seem psychotic. Even like when people try to show him kindness, he acts psychotic in return to them. So, and one thing that's weird about Billy is he has severe asthma. And the guy that killed Linda had severe asthma. So it's like, Billy, did you kill Linda? I don't know, you gotta watch to find out. But throughout the movie, we see Lane and Billy playing their game together. I guess they own an old theater, and they play like old horror movies and stuff there. I'm like, oh, these are people I would hang out with. So they basically just have a theater, and no one's ever there with them, and they just play this board game there. Which brings us to this bizarre three-way date that Lane and Keegan have, and Billy happens to be there too. Keegan says to the cop, oh, you're married, should we be doing this? And he is basically like, we have an open marriage, and my wife knows, and I don't know, maybe we're getting split up. I have no idea. But either way, they're like, oh yeah, this is appropriate, we should have a date, and by the way, let's have my strange friend here with us. Keegan shows Billy kindness that he has never seen before, and he actually accepts it from her. Like, he is nice to her, and you almost think that he's getting like a little too attached to her. Like maybe he has a thing for Keegan. It's very weird. They're on like a three-way date at the theater together, and she kind of like grabs Billy's arm because she's scared. Keegan totally wants to bone Lane, and he's screwing everybody else in town, and Lane turns down Keegan's like blunt offer to sleep together, and he's like, oh, I want to take it slow. So it's like, oh, Lane, you care about Keegan. Keegan goes nebbing around the theater one night, and I don't even understand, like, watching this movie, I don't know why she was there. And then there's a scene where Lane is basically having like a monologue, and I don't know why he's talking or who he's supposed to be talking to. Is he talking to Billy? Is he just talking aloud to himself? All these things weren't very clear to me. So that's really all I can say without spoiling this movie. It was kind of, I loved it. First of all, I loved this movie. I thought that it was so much fun, but at the same time, I'm like, where is this going? Why why were these people not investigating Linda's and the drowned girls? Why were they not investigating their deaths more? Like, Keegan's supposed to be in town because her sister was killed. They basically acknowledged that her death was a homicide, like she was pushed through the window, even though she really wasn't. And she just drops it. Like, she's just like, oh, I'm here because my sister died, but ooh, what about this hot cop that's married? And that's basically the focus of this movie, is Keegan and Lane's love interest. There's not like a super high kill count in this movie, but I think that the emphasis is more on the creepy factor and like being just generally uncomfortable, because I was uncomfortable during a lot of scenes in this. What was very, very strange and kind of unique was there was no music during the opening or ending credits. That whole sequence, like, there is the ending especially, there's like this really dramatic like scene that's happening, and then it freezes, and then it's just like it cuts to the credits, no music. I'm like, that was very dramatic for a kind of, I mean, I think that the ending, it's kind of open-ended. I'm not sure. I mean, it's not, you know, one of those things where all the loose ends are tied up, but at the same time, it's like, I wasn't really vested enough in the story to care about that. So if you're like going in looking for a flawless story in your slasher, this is not the movie, because it was just bizarre, more than nothing. There was a very, very long scene where they're playing mud football. It's also not really explained why they play this game, deadly game. I guess something happens in the game and then somebody dies in real life. That's not really explained. It's just implied. So I guess my overall feeling is there are a lot of things about this movie that were not communicated well, or just like, not, I wouldn't say plot holes, but things that's just like, why are you focusing on this instead of like the killings? So just a very, very strange movie, but at the same time, it was super fun. And if you're a fan of 80s, or especially like early 80s slashers, you have to give this a watch. That's how I feel about it. I very much, I mean, the deaths are kind of cool, but they're just not really the focus of the movie. I very much enjoyed it nonetheless. So let's take a look at the physical release. We have the slip. We took a look at the back. Very dramatic. I think it's very, very attractive. So here is the alternate art, which I don't know. I don't know which one I prefer more. Definitely Mount Boobies right there. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. I think I like the other one better. I'm not sure, but there it is. Here's how it looks whenever you open it up. There on the disc we have the same artwork as the back of the slip. And we have our book, because it's the first pressing. An insert card for Hell High. What do you know about that? Here is the book. It smells good. So what's awesome about the book, we have cast and crew, and then we have The Games People Play, Exploring the Midwestern Gothic and Deadly Games by Amanda Reyes, and about the restoration. So I did read Amanda's little write-up in here, and it was good. What I love about Amanda's write-up is she always has great commentary on women in film, women in horror. And I mean, there's some boobies right there, but the cast of this, there are a lot of women. Like I said, there's all those white women that I couldn't keep them straight one from the other, but there are so many women in this. The vast majority of the kills in the movie were women, and that was notable. So if you get the first pressing and you get the book, definitely read that, because, you know, Amanda has some great comments on that. So let's look at the special edition content. We have the restoration. Did look really, really good though. It's the brand new 2K restoration from the original camera negative. It looked great. It looked very good. It sounded great. Optional English subtitles. Brand new audio commentary with The Hysteria Continues. Sooty's a shit. Yes, she is. A brand new interview with actor Ray Mansfield, which, is that, like, is she married to the director? Because the director is Scott Mansfield, so I assume. But Sooty was Lane's wife, like the one that was like cheating on him and stuff. So yeah, that's really interesting. Practical Magic, a brand new interview with special effects and stunt coordinator John Eggett. Extensive image gallery featuring never before seen production photos and promotional material. Original trailer, original Who Fell Asleep screenplay, reversible sleeve, and the newly commissioned artwork is by Ralph Krauss. There you go. This is a 95-minute flick. It didn't feel like super long, so thank you very much to Arrow for sending this to me for review. I very much enjoyed it. Let me know if you guys have picked this up and checked it out, or if you plan to. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching my review, and I will see you next time with another one.